Hello and welcome to the Fool Duel podcast for Week 10 of the NFL season. I am James Gale. You can follow me on Twitter at GoJPG.
And I am Ivan Lovegren. You can follow me on Twitter at WatchTheBreaks.
And this is the fourth week we've done this.
This is week 4 of Fool Duel, week 10 of NFL.
It'll be the third week with our super cool theme song. I have yet to credit my friend Jeff Van Driel. You can follow him on Twitter at Jeff Van Driel, all one word.
Let's hear that song one more time. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, it's really great. So that's our fun little theme song. We've been enjoying it. Thank you, Jeff, for letting us use it for free. We're not paying him anything, but I know he listens to the podcast, so hopefully a little bit of our advice he'll use.
A little bit of your advice.
He just got into DFS, so we've been talking about that a little bit. So we're on to Week 10. Week 9 was a little light for us. I was in Arizona for the First Pitch Arizona campaign. I was able to bring this back.
Oh, sweet.
That's a foul ball that I was able to get.
How many kids did you push out of the way for?
Well, I'll tell you what it was I was at the game. It was, I can't remember the teams, but it was at the Giants spring training facility, which is in Scottsdale. And they don't have their parking lot is right by a hospital, so you have to park in like a parking garage, and it was really crowded. So I left after 1 out in the top of the ninth just to beat the traffic. And as I was walking out, a ball came up over the stands and out onto the sidewalk, and I walked up, grabbed it, put it right in my bag. I didn't have to fight for any kids. So, yeah, I got a ball. And
Nice.
that's my first foul ball ever, so I'm glad I got to keep it and not give it to a stupid kid.
That's very cool.
Those dumb kids. They got to have a ball. It makes you feel so special.
Yeah. I got 2 of them right here.
Oh. So we're on to Week 10. We've got our week 10, our general DFS strategy. Do you have any talking points you want to go over?
Oh, are we going to do that first, or are we going to oh, yeah, I see. I thought about this, and after last week, I concluded I don't know that I have the right to talk about any sort of strategy except for how to maybe log into the site.
Okay.
Ironically, I went to log into DraftKings today, and they have a little CAPTCHA at the beginning where you have to click. It says, "I'm not a robot." Mm-hmm. And you click the box. So I typed in my username, my password. I clicked "I'm not a robot." I clicked submit. And it said, "You did the CAPTCHA wrong." Apparently you have to click it. You have to wait for it to do a whole load thing and give you a green check mark before you can click submit. So I'm not even qualified to explain how to log in to these sites. I'm going to leave strategy to you this week, especially because I know that you're packed full of stuff. What'd you learn at First Pitch?
Okay,
that can be applied to football.
Well, it was obviously it's a baseball conference, so all the info was about baseball and next year. But they had a DFS panel, and then they had a DFS breakout. I went to both of those. Obviously, they're talking about baseball DFS, so a lot about pitchers, a lot about weather and stacks and general baseball strategy. But they did have some things that are useful for all sports, and so today I'll cover head-to-head matchups, 50-50s, and something I've been trying for the past week is the time of day at which you enter these contests. So one guy at the breakout mentioned entering these 50-50 games or head-to-heads early in the day. So anytime before noon is when you'll try to find a 50-50 partner. Now, I'm using the Roto-Grinders Chrome extension to find head-to-head matchups, which can tell you how many wins that player has in a given sport. So the thing I'm doing this week is I'm finding NBA games throughout the day, and I call them greenie matchups. So when you hover your mouse over the opponent, if you have this extension, it'll say how many wins they have, and if they have less than 100, it'll show up green. So those are the matchups I'm trying to find, and the earlier in the day, the better, I think, because you have a chance of coming up against somebody who has dead money in their lineup, or a player that isn't playing in the game.
This happened to me just the other day. I texted you in the middle of a thing, and I had 7 of my 9 guys in my DFS basketball lineup were on fire, and one of them was out.
Yep.
And I had said when I set my lineup at 9 a.m., oh, don't forget to check, and I forgot to check.
I went up against a guy playing Nerlens Noel the other day, and Nerlens Noel was sat out. Or last night, Anthony Davis didn't go, and I went up against a guy who had Anthony Davis in his lineup.
Yeah, but let's be honest.
Yeah.
You have to play Anthony Davis. Like you have to. You can't not. It's too much of a risk.
Uh,
Even if he's out, it's too much of a risk not to play him. That's all. You never know when he's going to go off for 60 points.
That's true. I think James Harden and Stephen Curry have a better chance more often. I don't know. NBA, I'm still learning. I'm still really learning. It's sometimes you want to fill out, you want to go stars and scrubs. Sometimes you want to go like 2 stars and then a lot of mid range. We're talking about football. So, and with football, it's a little different because they have much more.
Even if Ben Roethlisberger is out, you can't afford to sit him. You got to play him.
they they in the NFL, they're much more diligent about reporting injuries constantly. And you have a week before the game, so you're constantly monitoring the injuries. Whereas basketball, it's every day. Sometimes you have back-to-backs. Anthony Davis yesterday was on the second day of a back-to-back. So there's just not enough time as there is in football to report these injuries. So with football, it's a little different, although I do think that if you look and try to find your head-to-head matchups earlier in the week, you might run up against somebody who locks in a lineup and then doesn't touch it until game day. So you could have an advantage over somebody who has picked a running back that may have a more of a chance to split time on Sunday, whereas earlier in the week they were definitely the lead back. Like right now.
Well, and that's the danger on FanDuel because, some of these teams, the teams that don't play Thursday, if you enter into a Thursday lineup and your team has practice on Friday, your guy could tweak something in practice on Friday.
Yep.
Or your opponent's guy could tweak something in practice on Friday. Or your opponent could have taken a flyer on Austin Seferian Jenkins like I did last week. I did chicken out at the last minute. Not that it helped me because I still placed horribly. But I did pull him out at like Thursday at 4:45 p.m. But we're seeing the same exact situation this week with him where it's like, yeah, it's been another week, but we don't want him on the field until he's 110% healthy, and he doesn't want that either. And so you really don't actually know. So, so entering lineups early in the day, early in the week can be useful if you are a diligent player.
Yes, so try to find your games early in the week, but be aware and be prepared to change those lineups up until game day. And that goes with any sport, basketball, baseball, football, hockey. I'm bad at hockey. I have yet to, like in the games I've played, I'll just play against my cousin for a buck. Like I never start a goalie that's actually playing. Like I'll pick my goalie and then he'll end up not starting.
Well, that's actually long been actually going back to hockey gambling. Not that I ever did this. But if you can somehow get an inside track on the goalie, that's huge because they won't announce it. They'll just roll out the goalie, and it's kind of like a catcher in baseball where, I mean, granted with catcher and there's the pitcher correlation, but you'll go 4 games and then they'll throw in the backup goalie without telling anybody, and then you'll be like, okay, it's been 4 games. That means they're going to roll out the backup goalie. I'm going to bet the other team, and then for that span they go 6 games, and so it's really a crapshoot if you can happen to. I'm not going to advocate insider stuff. And if you have a problem gambling, don't forget to seek help. We do this with our entertainment budget. We know that gambling can be a huge problem. We expect to lose every single week, even though we give great advice. And we just do this with what we would spend on fun, and we view this as entertainment. But if you have a problem gambling, don't be afraid to ask for help.
That's right. Gamblers Anonymous is the number one resource, I guess. I don't know. There's a lot of resources for people with gambling.
You're on the internet right now. You can Google. It's easy.
Exactly.
That said, speaking of early, checking your lineups early, this week's early games, we have Thursday night is Buffalo, Miami. Right? No, Buffalo
Bills.
Jets. Buffalo versus the Jets. My God. Those teams, if they're not the Patriots, they all blend together in that conference. So we're going to fade that game out of discussion. Not too much to go on there.
Who do you like? Jets are favored by 1.5.
It really comes down to who gets injured in this game.
Okay. I'll take the Jets.
If Fitzpatrick goes down, that changes the entire complexion of the Jets. If Tyrod Taylor goes down, God, did you watch EJ Manuel in that London game?
Ooh.
So we don't have a London game this week. So that means our early games start at 10. And oh my gosh, I don't see the Vikings at number one on our list, James. What'd you do?
I I made a point to put them in order. The Vikings does show up first, but they are a 1 p.m. game. They are in Oakland, so we will cover them in
I don't even see where
chronological
they're at.
order. They're
Okay,
down the list.
so we got Lions at Packers. Line as of today is Green Bay by 13 and an over/under of 48.5. So they're expecting some scoring in this game. Um, but the Lions. Calvin Johnson is questionable, though seems likely to play to me. Packers have not looked like the Packers the last 2 weeks.
Both games were on the road for the Packers. They're returning to Lambeau Field against a division foe that they really enjoy beating. They've beaten up on the Lions this past decade, even more. The Lions have just been bad against the Packers, but they do get up to play. I know they really want to beat the Packers. Everybody in the NFC North wants to beat the Packers.
Stat I saw today, Randall Cobb was 18 months old the last time the Lions beat the Packers at Lambeau.
So you got to pick the Packers. Minus 13 is a lot of points, so I get it if you're gambling, you take the Lions. But I think the Packers are going to win. I think this is a game where it's one of those FU games for Aaron Rodgers. He wants to come out blazing, and he wants to score a lot of points. He's very expensive on FanDuel. He's 9,200 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he is 7,500.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Green Bay offense. I would probably go for Rodgers and a pass catcher. I'm going to stay away from those running backs.
You don't like the James Starks starting over Eddie Lacy, Mike McCarthy's commitment to the run that he's been reiterating this week?
What did he say?
Oh, he was just like, we're going to run it, and we're going to pound it, and then we're going to run it. Like it was a real redundant push on their running game. And then the whole thing that Starks is taking over in advance of Lacy.
Well, James Starks is 6,000 on FanDuel. He's 4,900 on DraftKings. He's a good pass catcher, so I like him in that PPR format of DraftKings. I think there's just some nice values for running back less than 6,000 this week on FanDuel, so I'll stay away from him on FanDuel. I like the play. I have him in season long, so I'm playing him there. But we're talking DFS, so
Yep.
Play him on DraftKings. Go somewhere else on FanDuel. Who I really like this week for the Lions is Joique Bell. He's a little inconsistent with his work. 7 carries against Kansas City on November 1st. 3 against the Vikings. 10 against the Broncos. But I like Joique Bell.
Well, at 3,200, you don't have to get a whole lot from him. If you're doing a stacked lineup of other stuff and you need somebody cheap, 3,200 on DraftKings. What is it?
52 on
52
on FanDuel. Green Bay Packers are giving up 4.5 yards a carry, 125 yards on the ground this season. I say it every week against the Packers. To keep Aaron Rodgers off the field, you run a lot. They did it with Jonathan Stewart. They did it with C.J. Anderson and Ronnie Hillman. They gave him plenty of carries. I think Joique Bell gets the most of the work. They have Theo Riddick, who hasn't been necessarily getting a ton of work, but he's definitely on the depth chart, and he's worth considering, especially if you need let's just look up Riddick really quick. Theo Riddick, 3,300 on DraftKings. 5 attempts against KC, 3 against the Vikings, 7 against the Bears. They're throwing a lot, those Lions. But in order to keep Rodgers off the field, you got to run the clock. You got to run the ball. The running defense isn't that great. They were able to hold Jonathan Stewart to 66 yards on 20 carries last week, but
he still got 20 carries, though.
He got the work, exactly. And I think Joique Bell's going to get the most work out of the backfield for the Lions. So he's my play on that team. Although Calvin Johnson, he's always a threat. He's a great player.
Yeah.
But Matthew Stafford is clearly regressing. It's been tough for him. Joique Bell. That's my play for the Lions. I don't have any others.
So now I have a fun one in this next game. So we have Cowboys at Buccaneers. Line is Tampa Bay by 1. And I know that we got Matt Castle going, who's a nice value play. But still, Tampa Bay favored to win against the Cowboys, even with Matt Castle. It just still surprises me to see a Buccaneers favored to win.
Well, they're at home, which helps them out.
Yeah, and their defense has been it's been doing some stuff. That Quan Alexander, if there was an IDP fantasy DFS, I'd be playing him. But I have a big strong like on the Buccaneers,
Yeah, I do
which
too.
is Doug Martin. Not cheap,
No,
but not expensive.
And a lo-
6,700 on FanDuel. Sorry, you were.
well, I was going to say, I think I think Martin's a great play this week, especially because his price hasn't gone down too much.
Yeah.
But I think recency bias is going to keep a lot of people away from him because over
Yeah.
the past 2 weeks against Atlanta, he had 23 carries for 71 yards. You like that work, but last week, I had him last week in a lineup, and it gets you in our head-to-head, and he only had 11 carries for 31 yards, 2 receptions for 12 yards, which is a cool 3.3 points on FanDuel.
Yeah. But
and
5,600 on DraftKings, so he's even cheaper on DraftKings relative
Yeah.
PPR. And it was on the big TV, the Cowboys versus the Eagles last week. Imagine taking all 3 of those Eagles running backs and putting them into one person. They pounded it.
Yeah, they did.
DeMarco Murray had a great game. Darren Sproles had a great game. Ryan Matthews had a 25-yard touchdown run. The Cowboys are banged up on defense. Who knows if Sean Lee will be clear to play with that bad concussion it looked like he got.
Yeah.
I mean, and then his backup, the guy that backed him up, got knocked out of that game. So it's like this is a team that's set up to be run against from a team that has a clear number one and isn't going to want to pass the ball too much with Vincent Jackson still out, ASJ still on the questionable, doubtful fence. And you want to take pressure off that young quarterback. So the only scary thing here is that Jameis Winston is the kind who can run it in on a 3-yard run himself. So you do run that danger, the Cam Newton danger of poached touchdowns from your quarterback. But heck, this year we've seen Tom Brady run for touchdowns. We've seen Jay Cutler run for touchdowns. So you almost can't discount that anymore, no matter what the team. So I love Doug Martin in this game.
Yeah, I'm a fan too. Dallas is giving up a 95.3 passer rating to opposing quarterbacks. I think Jameis would be a nice tournament play, a nice cheap punt play at quarterback. Who's he going to throw to? Mike Evans. You got to hope Safarian Jenkins maybe makes it onto the field, but again, we don't know. Vincent Jackson's out. The Cowboys are giving up 4.2 yards per carry, 111 yards per game on the ground. I think they're not world-beating numbers, but I think Doug Martin can take advantage of that banged-up defense, like you did say. I do think you can throw on Tampa Bay. They're giving up a 106 passer rating to opposing quarterbacks. It's Des Bryant's second week back. He's expensive, but I think that makes him a good tournament play because there's just too many other nice options around him that you could choose. You could go Julian Edelman for a bit more on DraftKings. Gronk in your flex for just an extra 200 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Des Bryant is 8,100. I'd rather play Calvin Johnson for 8 or Julian Edelman for 8.
Yeah, but what you're telling me with all this, or what I'm hearing is, if you're looking for a cheap quarterback, Matt Castle at 6,300 in FanDuel, 5,000 in DraftKings is not a bad option when you consider he does have Des Bryant, Terrence Williams, Jason Witten, backs out of the backfield.
Yeah.
And he is experienced. Like, he's not a turnover machine.
No. He was
he's
quarterback
not
for my team last year.
He's not ridiculously dynamic, but he might be able to get it done. So that's
Yeah.
worth keeping in mind. If you want a piece of that potential passing game, but don't want to commit to one of those options at the price, Des Bryant at too much, maybe. There you go, Matt Castle.
Yep.
Plug him in and then put superstars around him.
I like it.
Him and Joique Bell and a ton of superstars.
You could do it. So we're on to the next game. Panthers at Titans. Carolina is favored by 5.5.
Panthers.
Over-unders at 44.
Cam Newton tearing down banners.
Keep playing him.
Going to Tennessee. Are they racist in Tennessee like they are racist in, North Carolina? Packers fans? Or are we not going there? We're not going there.
All I know is that he ripped down the thing. What made it racist?
Oh, well, one of the Packers fans went on his Facebook page and did this like rant, and he was like, "Oh yeah, when this guy, I saw this man coming up to me, and I thought he was going to ask me for some change, and I didn't
Yeah,
have anything." And I'm like,
I
yeah,
did see that. Yeah, that's silly.
but,
Yeah, well, when you're online, you say whatever you want.
yep, when you're a
So,
Packers fan,
so Panthers, Titans, Carolina 5.5 over under 44. Cam Newton, you can consider him every week. He's 8,200 on FanDuel. He will cost you 7,000 on DraftKings. He's a great play every week. I don't know what to say. I think he's a great play for cash games. What do you think?
I think he's a great play. If my philosophy thus far has been go for a cheaper quarterback with upside, because I have rarely seen even like then you count on Aaron Rodgers and he has back-to-back bum weeks. So what are you going to do? But I do like Jonathan Stewart, who you pointed out was getting the work last week, even if he wasn't quite able to convert last week like he normally does. 4,300 on DraftKings. 4,300 on DraftKings.
66 on FanDuel.
Yep, there you go. And so I like him for value. The thing with Cam is he could get those rushing touchdowns. And the Titans, it's like you want to like Mariota, but, well, I've seen too much from this Panthers defense, actually. The Saints defense has been all over the place. So that last week doesn't entirely surprise me, even though it would have taken a bit of a flyer to go on him last week. But, breaking stuff, making noises. But the Panthers defense is incredibly solid. I mean, the over-under is only 44. It's not low, but it's not high either. Tells me that Vegas is kind of split on what's going to happen this game. It's one of those games where I like the Panthers. I'm really enjoying them as a team this year, but I don't know if it's where I put my money.
Sure.
Kind of reminds me of basketball, how it's like you end up putting a bunch of money on Portland and Utah games just because they're going to be high scoring, even though you don't like any of the players on them.
Utah is holding opponents this season to the lowest points per game.
Really?
Well, Cleveland scored a bunch on them the other night.
I know that you like Rodney Hood.
I love Rodney Hood. I love Rudy Gobert. I like Gordon Hayward. I really like the Jazz. But so Jonathan Stewart, 20-plus carries the last 4 weeks. He's getting the work. I'm just a fan of Jonathan Stewart, and I think he's definitely worth considering now that he's clearly the number one back. Again, Tolbert and Newton are going to vulture touchdowns at the goal line. But if you want a running back that's going to get guaranteed work against a Tennessee defense that's giving up 4.1 yards per carry, 111.5 yards per game, I like Jonathan Stewart. Now this Carolina defense, they've been letting teams back in games. They let Andrew Luck back in the game.
Who's talking? What's going on?
We're talking about the
I know.
Panthers. Again with you.
Sorry. Entertainment factor.
It's a silly day today.
Yeah.
But this Carolina defense, they're letting teams back in games. They let Aaron Rodgers back in the game last week. They let Andrew Luck back in the game.
Yeah, but let's think about this too, though. Did they let them back in the game, or did they play a pretty good prevent defense?
Sure,
because that's something I've heard a lot about this season. It seems to be a hot topic of discussion, at least maybe on LA sports radio, where people criticize defenses for giving up points late when they've got a big lead. And maybe it's just because we got a lot of defensive guys that are on the radio here, Marcellus Wiley and all those guys. But they've been just preaching all season long about how if you don't play the prevent defense and you get beat deep, that's worse than being up 17 and giving up 13,
It's still points. It's still fantasy points.
It is.
My point with that is, I think I don't know if I'd start Mariota, but I think in a prevent defense situation like that, I like Delaney Walker again.
Yeah,
he had a good week last week, so I think.
And this is not to get too technical or argumentative, but Delaney Walker, his 61-yard touchdown, Marcus Mariota even admitted should not have. He's like, "Oops, that was a mistake."
Yeah,
thank God.
yeah, I saw that.
And that was early in the game, not against a prevent defense, where he just happened to get past the coverage.
Sure.
I almost think that this specific, when you're playing even Andrew Luck, despite how we've been viewing him, professionals view him differently. When you're playing Andrew Luck or Aaron Rodgers, your prevent is further back than when you're playing Marcus Mariota. So you get the lead on Marcus Mariota. Your prevent is not as much of a prevent as
Yeah.
it is against maybe an Aaron Rodgers or an Andrew Luck. Like you're still like, hey, let's give him some pressure. He is a young guy. He is brand new. This team isn't as good. So I hear where you're going before I cut you off. Sorry, I'm a bad co-host. But I feel really strongly about that point.
Okay.
That the Panthers defense will stick it to these guys even if they get a lead.
Sure. Well, I mean, that said, I'm not rushing out to start Marcus Mariota in DFS this week.
I don't know. I think you might be.
He's a good tournament play. Or not.
I want to see the walls of your bedrooms, James.
He's a tournament play.
I want to see the wall of your bedroom.
Oh, do you think I get a Mariota poster up there?
Yeah. Him stroking a duck in a
Yeah.
bathtub.
That'd be the one I'd get too. I wouldn't get any NFL stuff. No,
God, if they had that, I would buy that poster.
CEO of Nike standing there with him.
Yeah. Just showering money on him.
Yeah. So, I mean, my plays from this game are Jonathan Stewart and Cam Newton. That's it. Again, I like Delaney Walker. I like Delaney Walker every week. Yeah, he's a
not
great
bad. And
he's a great safety valve for Mariota. He's 5,900 on DraftKings or on FanDuel, and he is 47 on DraftKings. So not bad at all.
And that's a strategy that I brought up recently too, which is I think I touched on it briefly last week, but playing two tight ends in DraftKings, using that flex spot for another tight end. Tight ends can produce some really cheap, good value the way they're being used. If you'd played Delaney Walker and Tyler Eifert last week, you would have made 60 points on $10,000. You can't beat that.
So we're on to our next game. It's Chicago Bears at the St. Louis Rams. St. Louis is favored by 7.5 points. The over/under is 42.5. Are you starting Todd Gurley?
Now, I'll be curious with this game because we don't talk enough about weather and home field advantage. St. Louis has been having mediocre attendance all year. Now, that might not have as big of a bearing when you're playing the 49ers. Chicago's a 4.5-hour drive from St. Louis, maybe 5 hours. So this is one game where you might actually see it have more of like a Chicago. It's an indoor stadium too, so crowd noise can actually make a difference if there's crowd noise from the opposing team with the way that the Rams have been having horrible attendance this year. Just throwing it out there. Kind of interesting to me.
Yeah.
That said, I'm a Bears fan and that I hate everybody on their team. And
everybody?
Yes, everybody.
Really? You don't like Alshon or Martellus Bennett?
No, I mean, I like Devin Hester.
He's
Where's
not
he?
there. He's with the Falcons. Or is he not with anybody?
I think he's on IR with the Falcons. And I'm pretty high on this Rams team, except for the quarterback. Freaking Nick Foles does not deserve the weapons and the defense that he has around him. Yeah. That said, the Rams defense looks really good. They're one of the more expensive defenses, but that's always a difference of $700 or $800. So don't feel like you're breaking the bank if you do decide to go for them. I guess it's more like $1,200 difference in FanDuel, but $3,600 on DraftKings, $5,400 on FanDuel. So that's a good play that I like. I like Gurley and I like the handcuff. I like stacking the running back with the defense because if the defense holds, defense gives you some points up against pick six Cutler. That means they're going to be handing it off to the running back more. That also keeps the ball out of Nick Foles' hands. That said, he's actually too expensive for my lineups this week. This is my first week in a couple where I've not played Todd Gurley. So just throwing that out there for you. $7,300 on DraftKings, $9,200 on FanDuel, most expensive guy on FanDuel. So that's where I'm at with that.
I am playing Todd Gurley this week. I think he's
FanDuel or DraftKings or both?
FanDuel because he is so expensive. I think people will be off of him slightly.
That's true, and I have a player that is the opposite of that for me that I'll get to later. So I totally understand that point where it's
he's shot up. People will still use him, but Chicago's giving up 4.6 yards per carry, 121.6 yards a game on the ground. Again, Nick Foles, he's just not good. And I think Gurley is in line 20-plus carries every week. He's pretty certain for 20-plus. So let's see here. The last 5 weeks, 19, 30, 19, 20, 24. He's getting work. He's very, very blue chip for me. I like Todd Gurley a lot. So
Nick Foles is 5,000 on DraftKings, 6,400 on FanDuel.
Well, you got to hope he tosses a little screen pass to Todd Gurley, and then Todd Gurley scampers for 60 yards.
Yeah.
What's that noise? Is that a
Oh,
dump
yeah.
truck?
Apparently there's, somebody. How bad is it? Do you need me to?
No, it's not that bad. I can't hear you now. You muted it.
Yeah, but the noise got better, though, right?
It got a lot better.
Yeah, so I mean, then the Bears, the big question mark there is Forte. He was in practice yesterday. He got a shot to his knee last week, so maybe he'll play, maybe he won't. If he doesn't, Langford is a good value play. But again, you also got to figure a lot of people are going to be wanting that. They're going to see everybody's eye is going to be on Langford this week, just like it was last weekend. If he gets the nod, then though, did you see what happened last week that threw everybody off right before the game? Well, Kadeem Carey got the start.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, I forget which reporter at ESPN announced that like 25 minutes before the game. So a bunch of people went and changed their roster because Kadeem Carey was getting the start. He got the start, carried the ball 3 times, and then they put in Langford and kept him in for the rest of the game. So kind of an interesting little fantasy football wiggle there. But eyes on Langford, not a bad option. But the Rams defense is good. Cutler is Cutler.
Yeah. Well, I will say this is that St. Louis is 3rd worst in the league in completion percentage allowed. 69.2% completions to opposing quarterbacks. I wouldn't shy away from Jeffrey or Martellus Bennett this week. They're not elite plays for me, but I think they're solid tournament plays, especially since St. Louis's defense is really good. And I am starting St. Louis's defense in a couple of rosters, so I'm not shying away from them. But I do think that Jeffrey and Bennett could be in line for, especially in DraftKings where you get a full point per reception.
Yeah. Well, and the defense is not necessarily indicative of the offensive points either. One of the reasons for playing the Rams defense is fantastic special teams.
Yeah.
And they not only get turnovers, but they've been turning turnovers into points, it seems.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't necessarily shut an offense down. That can sort of encourage a higher risk offense. So you're not necessarily shooting yourself in the foot playing the Rams defense and some receivers from my team.
The Bears.
I wanted to say Cubs. I miss the Cubs.
Well, they'll be back soon, and they're just going to be even better. They're trying to sign David Price or Zach Greinke. I'd take Price there, but
I don't know if we'd like.
It's me.
Oh my gosh! So the next game has the second highest over/under, and my oh my gosh was because I just looked to double check, and the highest over/under is ridiculous this week. College numbers, but yeah, Saints at Washington with an over/under of 50. Which what was the final score of the New England game actually?
Last week?
Yeah.
They Washington scored either like 7 points. They lost 27-10.
So that one only ended up that was a over/under of 50 or 50.5, and that one only ended up scoring 37. So this week we have Saints at Washington over/under of 50. Who do you like? What do you like?
Well, I like Kirk Cousins against a Washington defense that is you can throw on them. Against a Saints defense that is allowing a 112 passer rating to opposing quarterbacks. 5,200
on DraftKings, 6,500 on FanDuel, which is still pretty cheap for a FanDuel quarterback.
So Washington players are definitely worth consideration. My favorite, because he's got a great price, especially on DraftKings, is Jamison Crowder, who's been getting targets, consistent receptions since week 3.
I thought he played for the Celtics.
You're thinking of Jay Crowder, J-A-E.
Oh.
2 common letters in his first name, so you're close there. But from week 3 to week 9, receptions for Crowder, 6, 7, 8, 4, 5, 6. He's nothing over 100. no TDs in there. But I think that everybody is going to look at
Well,
that number. They're going to look at that Saints defense. They're going to say, let me load up on Garcon. Let me load up on Jordan Reed. Let me load up on not Deshaun Jackson because he's not back yet. But I think Jamison Crowder is going to be the one that would benefit from. He'll benefit from some single coverage, and he can catch. I haven't watched a lot of tape on him, but I'm pretty sure he's one of those. He can catch the deep ball, but then they'll throw him screens and stuff too.
mhm.
So, and I could be wrong. I really should have looked at some tape on him, but I like the pick, and he's
Yeah.
averaging 9.3 points per game on DraftKings, and for only 3,500, he is one of the cheaper receivers you could go with this week to
Yeah.
help surround yourself with studs. So
Well,
I like.
3,500 with an average of almost 10 is already pushing value territory for
Hmm.
him. And it sounds like this is one of those guys that's been getting the targets, but is still under the radar because he hasn't hit the end zone.
Hmm.
But it's all a matter of percentages in the
Yeah.
NFL. And the guy that's getting the chances eventually has to break. And it sounds like everybody, because I also didn't mention the over under is 50, the line is even. Unlike
Yes.
last week when the over under was 50.5 and the line was like New England by 13.
Hmm.
So that means that Vegas agrees that Washington is going to score some points in this game. So yeah, you kind of got to figure that's a good chance to be the breakout week for the guy that's been getting the targets and not finishing,
Hmm.
essentially.
Yeah.
So I
So
like that pick.
yeah. So those are my two plays. Although it wouldn't be crazy to look at a rusher for Washington. They're giving up 4.7 yards per carry, 122.6 on the ground. I haven't really been following them. I know Alfred Morris and Matt Jones have been splitting the work,
Yeah, Chris Thompson's even been getting some looks in there
and
too.
so and they're all very cheap. If you were, I'm just going to look at FanDuel right now and scroll down, and they're going to be great values. Matt Jones is 5,600.
Yeah, he's going to be the most expensive, but he's only 3,300 in DraftKings.
So that's a great worth a look.
Hmm.
Uh, Alfred Morris is 52. He only got 4 carries last week against New England. So, I mean, you'd look for the guy with the most work. I'm going to say it's Matt Jones. And he's definitely worth a flyer. I mean, the over-under's 50. A lot of points are going to get scored on both sides of the ball this week.
Hmm.
You got to like all the Saints. Breeze, Cooks,
Yeah, Snead
Snead.
is questionable. He's a
Snead
little
is
banged up.
a little banged up.
And Washington is actually really strong against the tight ends. Again, we don't always put so much credit into matchups,
Hmm.
but they're, I think, 31st against tight ends,
They've given
somewhere
up
right up there.
they've given up 35 receptions for 383 yards and a touchdown. So yeah, they're strong. Doesn't mean you fade Ben Watson, but there's a lot of good tight ends this week. I'd look
Hmm.
elsewhere, and we'll get to Gronk, who's probably going to be heavily owned this week. So, who did I say? Oh, Mark Ingram,
Yeah, he's a little expensive. He's 7,700, 6,400,
75 on FanDuel, but he's just
75.
he's
Yeah.
getting that work, and it just takes 1 week for him
Yeah.
to blow up. The past, let's see, since what week is that? It doesn't say here, but
Well, and don't forget, Robinson just went out 2 weeks ago, so
mhm.
last week was really his first week not sharing that.
And they're not giving touches to C.J. Spiller, even though he's
Hmm.
healthy.
Yeah, he's getting receptions, but not touches. They're pretty much using him as a wide receiver.
Hmm. Mark Ingram last week, 22 carries. Week before, 16, 14, 20, 12 against Philly, although Philly's got a good run defense.
Hmm.
Dallas, 17.
Well, I
He's
think
getting
that Philly game, double check the line, and I think that was one where Robinson got like 10 to 15
Did
or
he?
something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Could be wrong.
So I like Mark Ingram every week. He's definitely worth a look, although he is expensive. So I think a lot of tournament players will be looking somewhere else. But
Hmm.
I like Mark Ingram a lot. 64 on DraftKings.
So we've got right beneath that one, over under a 49 for Dolphins at Eagles.
Dolphins at Eagles. Boy,
What happened to the Dolphins? We had 2 amazing weeks from them, and then we had 2 skunk weeks from them.
Well, and
Though
Philly,
Miller still produced last week, but the team didn't.
Philly's got a good defense. They're allowing an 82.2 passer rating to opposing quarterbacks. Their defense has been pretty solid against the run, 4.1 yards a carry,
Hmm.
112.9 per game on the ground. So that doesn't mean I'm shying away from Lamar Miller. He's very talented, and they've been giving him the work, especially now that they have this new coach.
Hmm.
So and just to bring up his work,
5,400 on DraftKings. I think he's 7,200 on FanDuel. So a little more expensive on FanDuel. But
excuse
I
me.
will let you know now. Little preview of my lineups. I have him in both of my lineups. No, I don't have him in both of my lineups.
Oh, okay. Well,
But
my guess is
He's one of my three top running backs this week.
he's a great play
You're only allowed
on
two in
DraftKings. He's last week, 33 points, 12 carries, 44 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7 receptions for 97 yards. He's a great pass catching back. And so in a PPR is where I'd be more inclined to play him. So
Yeah.
you'll see him probably more used on DraftKings than on FanDuel. FanDuel, he's at 7,200.
So the Ivan eyeball test here says I have not watched enough Dolphins to know what their offensive line looks like, but part of what I was looking for with the Eagles' defense, yes, they've looked good, but they've played some really bad offensive lines,
They sure have.
and I don't think that the Cowboys last week did not have exactly the weapons the Dolphins have either. So I think there is a lot more chance to spread the field. And do a lot more passing to the backs as well as passing to Rashard Matthews.
I like Rashard Matthews.
Yeah.
I like Jarvis Landry. Dolphins have a ton of weapons. I mean, and they could go off any given week. I like their weapons. I like their offense. It just hasn't clicked yet.
Well, it has. It just hasn't clicked the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and consistently. It hasn't clicked
Yeah.
consistently. I think they're again, Philly's at home. They're I don't have their home record or if they're significantly better at home, but these are two inconsistent teams. Eagles
Yeah.
are 4-4. Dolphins are 3-5.
Did the Dolphins travel to Buffalo last week?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, so they traveled to New England, then they traveled to Buffalo. Now they're traveling to Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's three on the road in a row.
Yeah, three on the road in that same region. You almost got to wonder if they didn't just. I would have just stayed up there, but I'm not a millionaire either. So, I do like though. I like Lamar Miller, and I'm
Yeah.
not afraid of the rest of the team. And then the
No,
Eagles,
I
still
like him as
see-
a tournament play too. I think if you roll out like a little Dolphin stack into a tournament, it could be a pretty productive lineup. I'd stay away in cash. I wouldn't stay away from Miller in cash, but I'd stay away from Tannehill, Landry, and Rashard Matthews in cash. On the Eagles side, I like DeMarco Murray. He and recency bias will probably have him in quite a few lineups this week. We've all been waiting for him to finally do something, and then here he is last week going off against his former team. The Dolphins against the pass are giving up a 97.1 passer rating to opposing quarterbacks. Sam Bradford isn't great, but who do you take from the Philly passing game? Anybody? Jordan Matthews had a great week last week, but
still had too many drops.
yeah, yeah.
I'm my father, and if I don't like a guy, never do it for me.
Yeah.
Never starting Brandon Marshall. Seen too many of these dropped touchdowns, dropped easy plays from Jordan Matthews. Takes his eye off the ball. He's one of those guys where you can count on him to make the spectacular play. But I like discipline, and that's going to affect my judgment when it comes to fantasy football.
So probably the Philly running game is where you want to make your play this week.
I mean,
DeMarco is the most
Sproles-
expensive. Sproles is super.
Sproles is always fun because he's super cheap, and he's
Yeah.
always got that reception upside.
I like Sproles on DraftKings. I like DeMarco Murray on FanDuel. Ryan Matthews is just the wild card. I had him in season long, and I dropped him after week 2 because I needed to replace because I had Romo. But whatever.
So I've got
Murray's my play from the Eagles. I'll just say
yeah. I've got a question about this next game.
Okay.
Browns at Steelers.
Oh boy.
D'Angelo Williams is banged up.
Mm-hmm.
Is Isaiah Peed going to see any action?
You'll probably see some action. Or Jordan Todman. They say right here, Jordan Todman took first team running back reps for the Steelers on Wednesday. But they expect D'Angelo to come to practice today. We can see really quick if he shows up on the reader here. We'll have some nice dead air.
Surprisingly, both Peed and Todman are 4,700 on FanDuel, so you're still not getting much of a bargain for the risk you're taking there.
No. So I think
Todman, they're both 3,000 in DraftKings.
for me, it's Williams or nobody. I have Williams in a lineup, but I would be very quick to replace him. And you can replace him with probably somebody really good at his price. He's 65 on DraftKings. He is 76 on FanDuel.
Well, I'd say you could replace him with some people cheaper than his price. In
Oh,
fact,
sure.
actually, in the same game,
I'm saying if it's like
yeah,
if it's
down to the
uncertain,
wire.
yeah, and then you're like, oh, D'Angelo's not playing quick, swap in Mark Ingram. Quick
Unless I'm
swap in.
crazy and the Browns have started playing somebody else at running back, Isaiah Crowell, who seems to be getting the bulk of their work, is 5,300 in FanDuel.
Now that is interesting. The
I mean, he hasn't been putting up points, is all.
they've been
but-
keeping him out of the end zone, right?
Yeah, but when does that change? You know.
It could happen any week. He could get those 3 goal line looks and convert all of them. Where's our Isaiah Crowell? Yeah, 53. He's 10 carries last week, 10 the week before, 8, 11, 13, 12. So double
Just that
digit carries.
They've
for
not
sure.
been running enough. You know.
And Duke Johnson is a guy that is 5,900, and he has the past few weeks hasn't been getting many of the carries.
Oh yeah,
at
keep
all.
forgetting about him.
But he hasn't really
But
been.
he's been
showing
getting
up.
the receptions.
Nah, not really though. And yeah, he's more expensive. 5,900. 2, 7 against St. Louis. His biggest week.
Carries or receptions.
Receptions. So.
Which I think built into that though is targets, which is the thing
Yeah.
that's tough to look at. So.
So for the Browns, my play on the Browns would be Gary Barnidge, who we have talked about before. Steelers have given up 53 receptions, 553 yards, and 7 touchdowns to opposing tight ends. That's 10.1 ESPN points per game, which is similar to. They don't count receptions. But, yeah, so Barnidge is my play against the
Yeah.
Steelers. Especially
like-
if the Steelers go up and they have to throw.
I like Barnidge as well. We're looking at Landry Jones starting for the Steelers. FantasyPros.com, which is another site that sort of ascribes to my philosophy of cheaper quarterback. Landry Jones is one of their 5 that they plug into every lineup. So if you look at their optimized lineups, he's on there, which means he'll be owned by a decent amount of people. So I'm not actually saying I would advise playing him. That said, I feel like right before Ben came back, Landry Jones sort of discovered Martavis Bryant in those last 2 games that he had, and so I like Martavis Bryant this week. I think that he's got a lot of upside for that wide receiver 2 slot where you want to spend 5, low 6 on a guy. Obviously, you can't discount what Antonio Brown did last week, but also, can you count on that? Can you count on a guy having 3,000 yards in a game back-to-back weeks?
Sure. Well, week 7, when Landry Jones started against the Chiefs, Antonio Brown had 6 receptions for 124 yards. I think he's pretty quarterback-proof. I think, obviously, Big Ben puts him up into that super elite level. But
Yeah.
at 8,800 on DraftKings and 8,700 on FanDuel, I think a lot of people are going to be – they're just going to immediately discount Brown and move on to somebody else. But I still think Antonio Brown can have a productive week, and I like him as a tournament play.
Is Joe Hayden playing?
I don't care. I don't.
I know.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So
What
that is-
cornerback scares you? Does Rivas scare you as a shadow corner? I
Rivas
keep hearing
sure.
that it doesn't really matter anymore. That there's no real big shadow corner. Patrick Peterson would be the one that.
Yeah, Patrick Peterson. But we saw Sherman against, I guess this was last year, maybe, but they literally he didn't get a target to that side of the field.
Mm-hmm.
The whole game. Like he shut that down. Was it Randall Cobb last year?
Sherman?
Yeah.
I think he shut down Jordy.
Or was that this year?
Well, I know last year they didn't throw at him at all,
Was
like
it?
in that early game, but then in the playoffs they did.
Yeah.
I didn't watch that playoff game. I was on the road, I remember. But there aren't as many shutdown corners as you think. I mean, my short list is Patrick Peterson, Revis, and Sherman.
Yeah. Oh, mine too.
So, but Joe Hayden was at one point a good shutdown corner, but I think he's a little banged up.
So we have Jaguars at Ravens. How much money am I going to lose on this game this week? I keep taking the Jaguars.
All in on the Jags. Well, Baltimore is favored by
5.5 points. Oh my gosh. Baltimore with 0 targets is still favored over the Jags. That's how much you suck, Jags.
Both teams are 2-6, although everybody points to the Ravens haven't been blown out yet this year. I'm pretty sure the margin of all their losses has been incredibly small. Let's see, 4 points, 4 points, 4 points, 3 points, 3 points, 5. Cardinals was 8. Chargers, they won. Yeah, so Baltimore's been in every game that they've
Well, I feel like the
played.
Jaguars have too. They just Bortles throws a pick six every fourth quarter. It's like a guaranteed thing at this point. That said, he is really cheap in DraftKings, and I have him in my lineup at 5,600 because these Ravens, they've been the play your quarterback against team. They've been giving up the most points to quarterbacks.
And they're giving up a 106.9 passer rating to opposing quarterbacks, which is it's a juicy matchup.
Yeah, and you got to think that finally, I know Hearns is questionable, but even with Hearns questionable, Walters has been getting some good looks and playing well. So if
We like
Hearns
Brian
can make it on the
Walters.
field, yeah.
We really do at this podcast.
You got TJ Yeldon, you got Thomas coming back. He was a little banged up last week, but he did play. But so I like Bortles with all those weapons against the Ravens.
I like Allen Robinson. He's my number one play. I like Bortles a lot. I have him in some lineups. I like TJ Yeldon. TJ Yeldon is only 6,500 on FanDuel. He's been getting not consistent work, but he has 3 games this season with more than 20 carries. He's a capable running back out of the backfield to catch a pass.
Yeah.
So I like Yeldon a
I like
lot.
everything here except for the coaches. It's like I
about
just
it.
don't trust these coaches to actually like. I feel like I could game plan for the Ravens better than the Jaguars coaches, and that's not that. Like, I know every fan says that, but it's like this is a game where I honestly feel that. That and maybe the Lions against the Packers because Jim Caldwell's been asleep.
Oh,
for
he's just
10 years.
terrible. Who would you start on the Ravens?
Who do they have out for the season? Out for the season, injured reserve. I know Forsett is another one that Fantasy Pros is high on in optimal lineups for the price. He's been putting up top 10 running back numbers right on the cusp of that. Been costing top 10 running back numbers.
Well, the
14.4 points per game in FanDuel for 7,100. DraftKings.
I see 12
is-
points a game on mine. It says.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at projected points.
Oh, okay.
My bad. So yeah. So you could go with Forsett. I don't know. I don't trust them to put up points. I can see that line for the game because I expect their defense to get 2 touchdowns.
Oh, which defense? The Baltimore defense?
Yeah.
Baltimore defense has been decent against the run, 3.8 yards per attempt, 99 yards on the ground. You beat them through the air.
Yeah. I guess you can't not like Aiken because he's only 5,400 in
I don't know why I
FanDuel.
mentioned the Baltimore defense. I'm supposed to be talking about Jacksonville, but continue with Aiken.
Well, he's, it's tough to find a good cheap play in FanDuel. He's 5,400 on FanDuel, so it's not bad. 4,500 in DraftKings, but that's maybe, that's still Danny Woodhead cost, so I'd go with Danny Woodhead over Aiken in DraftKings, but
Well, the
in
Chargers
FanDuel,
aren't playing this week.
well,
I know what you mean, though. On the other week, yeah.
he's an example of a type of guy you can play because you have that flex option, so you have more options. But you have to get 3 wide receivers. Probably have to get 1 cheap wide receiver in FanDuel. So Aiken's not not a horrible play there. But I want my Jags to blow them out. My Jags are going to change that. It's going to happen.
Jags defense is pretty good against the run. 3.2 yards per attempt, 94.3 rushing yards per game total. You probably want to beat them through the air. Do you like Max Williams? Do you think Flacco can put up some points? He hasn't been terrible this season.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco.
I don't know. The Jaguars defense, it's just such an unexciting game. I don't even like talking about it.
Yeah.
It's like the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if Steve Smith were there, I'd be excited about it.
Yeah.
Because then I would see opposition to create stuff for Forsett also. Now it's like, what are you gonna do?
Load the box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's your team: Vikings at Raiders. Oh, it's a late game. That's why it's there.
It's a late game. It's our first of the 1 p.m. games. Oakland is favored by 3 points with an over-under of 44.5. Teddy Bridgewater will probably play. That's my guess.
Returned to practice yesterday, passed the concussion protocols.
He'll be just fine. Well, these concussions are just terrible. Every one you take makes you more of a vegetable when you're 50 years old.
What?
Exactly. Have you had a few?
Huh?
So
what? No, I don't drink on weekdays.
The Oakland defense is giving up 4.1 yards per carry, 96.9 yards on the ground per game. I don't think that matters at all for Adrian Peterson. You load him up every week.
I smell a homer pick.
Adrian Peterson's, it's hard not to make that pick. I'll say that right now. Oakland defense, Oakland secondary is giving up an 89.1 passer rating to opposing quarterbacks, 315 yards through the air. Teddy Bridgewater is a game manager, though. I think his best week is going to be where he throws for 220 yards but 3 touchdown passes.
But your best hope is that those 220 yards, 215 of them go to Stephon Diggs.
Well, we can hope.
So the question is, like, do you play Diggs?
Yes. I'm not rushing out to roster him. I think
6,600 in FanDuel.
That price has gone up.
Yep. And
so
5,100 in DraftKings. So that's right about what he was last week still.
I'm not rushing out to roster Diggs, but he's not a bad choice at all with the way he's been targeted and the way the Vikings have been using him.
But you are rushing out to roster AP?
Well, you can either roster AP or Gurley on FanDuel. AP is,
both, and then run Brian Walters and
Jamison Crowder,
Devin Funchess and Jamison Crowder.
Mm-hmm. You could do that. If I had to pick between Gurley and Peterson, I'm going to pick Gurley. But I think, and I know I just said this when we were talking about the game, that Gurley's price is going to keep people off of him. But I think if forced to make the decision between the two, most people will pick Gurley over Peterson.
More exciting, more fun.
Yeah, better matchup, slightly. Mm-hmm. But that said, Adrian Peterson is, they're 1A and 1B when it comes to projected work. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter who the matchup is. Adrian Peterson is going to get the work, and he can go off any week. Mm-hmm. I have Peterson in a lineup. I won't say if it's against you, but I am using Peterson this week.
You're not going to switch Peterson out?
Well, who knows? We have some time before we announce our lineups.
Okay. Well, if you do, I think you should consider switching him.
Oh, okay. Well, now, so for the Vikings, Peterson
that was just an abuse pun. That's all I wanted to work in there.
I didn't get it.
James, your comedy game is off tonight.
It went right off my head.
Mine's on. Yours is off.
So I have...
Hit mute on the comedy button.
I don't know about the Vikings defense. What do you think about the Vikings defense? Would you use them? They've been playing well, but they haven't been scoring fantasy points.
I wouldn't use the Raiders. 35 points against the Steelers. Not a lot of undisciplined play. Never thought I'd say this against the Raiders. And what I saw last week was the Raiders' offensive and defensive lines playing disciplined. Mm-hmm. When have you? I'm 31 years old. I've never said that in my life.
Well, Yeah.
The Raiders playing disciplined. So I would not be afraid of the Vikings defense if I am the Raiders. I know Cooper's questionable a little bit, some hamstring stuff, I think. So it's tough. Crabtree's price has gone up a bit because of his performance, but David Carr clearly likes him. If you're in a tournament league, one of those guys, Davis, and who's the other one that are there like 3 and 4? I think those are potentially good options for a $3,000, $3,500 tournament play,
Hmm.
or in that Gurley Peterson FanDuel lineup. And Latavius Murray is priced, below Ingram, below Yeldon, I believe.
What was his injury? Oh,
5,700 FanDuel
concussion. So he's dealing with
for
a concussion
DraftKings.
as well. We're not
And
sure. It says is blah blah
yeah,
blah.
6,700 in FanDuel. So any of those guys are good plays. None of them jump out from the value. That's another one where you might want to go with Derek Carr because you don't know who he's going to target. 7,500 in FanDuel. But I could see him having another, 4 touchdown game or at least a 3 touchdown game just because he's getting the time in the pocket and
Hmm.
having the time to not make stupid rush throws. And so that's why it's hard to pick a target on our behalf because a quarterback is getting rush throws. They're looking at their check downs, so we can count on them. A quarterback's getting a lot of time. You can look at their number ones. Here, his number one is banged up a bit. It's. I might like him the best.
Carr
Yeah,
probably
out
would be my play
of
too. Minnesota's giving up an 87.7 passer rating to opposing quarterbacks, which is not terrible. 220 yards through the air. Carr would be my play too. I do like Crabtree against that Minnesota second corner. You don't know if they're going to bring out blanking on it. Terrence Newman. He's been okay, but he's he's a veteran, and Crabtree could easily make him look foolish.
hmm
So Crabtree would be my receiver of choice. I think the Carr play isn't that bad. I would take the under on what is it, 42.5 or 44.5? It's 44.
44 and a half.
I'll
Yeah.
take the under. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm rooting for my Vikes, but Oakland -3 sounds about right. I think it'll be around there. So that's all I really have to say about that. Patriots at Giants.
College numbers 54.5 over under. Patriots only favored by 8.5.
Only.
That's the kind of season we've had. One where it's like, oh, they're only favored by 8.5.
Yeah, right.
We've seen 13-point spreads from them, I think, the last couple of weeks.
Like
Yeah.
14 and a half against Washington last week. 13, 14. I can't remember.
Yeah. And covering. They
Yeah.
hit 17 last week and 20 against the. So the main question is, and not a lot of people are asking this, can you put up points against the Patriots? Because we haven't seen that the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, they've been holding teams, but if any team can do it, it's the Giants. It seems that the Giants are the Patriots' nemesis.
Yeah.
They're the one hump they can't get over. This is going to be a very interesting game. I'm surprised it's not the Sunday night game. Are we in flex territory yet, where they can flex that game?
I don't know.
I
I
don't
would think
think
so,
so.
week 10, but
Yeah, I don't know.
um,
I mean, the Sunday night game is an interesting matchup, but I'd much rather watch this on Sunday night than
oh yeah.
Cardinals Seahawks.
So if you believe the grudge match, we've got Shane Vereen for New York at 4,300 and 5,800 respectively. Could be something.
Yeah. Well, New England's giving up 4.1 yards per carry, 89.3 yards per game on the ground.
We lost Dion Lewis last week to injured reserve, so that also makes LeGarrette Blount a very tempting option for the Patriots.
New York
But
has been they're about the same against the run. 4.3 yards a carry, 114.8 yards on the ground. But if one team goes up by a lot and has to and chooses to run the ball late, who's it going to be? The Giants or the Patriots? Probably the Patriots, right?
yeah.
So
But even there, will the Patriots ever take their foot off the gas as opposed to if the Giants do get up, they're going to want to take their foot off the gas. They're going to want to slow down everything.
that's very true. So
This is the most circular game ever. We could
Hey,
just with
really?
these coaches too. It's like you could talk yourself. Is Belichick going to do this? Is Brandon LaFell going to go off for 200 yards because no one's expecting it?
Mm-hmm.
Is Scott Chandler? Is he the play this week? You know,
Yeah. Gronk.
he's already poached 2 touchdowns from Gronk this
Yeah,
year.
I think it's a good Gronk week. I think Gronk's going to be heavily owned. Giants are gave up so far 59 receptions for 701 yards, which I'm pretty sure leads the league, and 5 touchdowns to opposing tight ends.
Yeah,
That's
they're 31st or 32nd in points given,
yeah.
fantasy points given to tight ends.
So I think Gronk is heavily owned this week. I think it's a great play, especially in cash games. He's got to go off though, so you really got to be rooting for Gronk, even if he's 40% owned in your cash games.
Without looking, tell me if Eli or Peyton is more expensive this week on FanDuel.
Eli.
Let me just check DraftKings and see too.
No.
Oh, that's crazy. So on
Yeah.
DraftKings, Eli is by
Yeah.
500. On FanDuel, he's not. That's
7,700 for
amazing.
Peyton, 7,400 for Eli, which is wild to me.
Hmm.
I don't get it. I really don't get that on FanDuel.
Yeah. I don't know. That makes me think I might like Eli. For 7,400, it's a little expensive, but it's also he gets 3 touchdowns to Odell Beckham, like it's worth it.
And I like Odell Beckham this week. If you're going to pay up for a 1, I think a lot of people are going to be paying up for Odell Beckham, especially on FanDuel. And that's when, like I said earlier, Antonio Brown becomes interesting because if you're paying up, you go Hopkins, you go Beckham, you go AJ Green on Monday night for your piece of Monday night. You don't go Antonio Brown because he's got that backup quarterback.
Hmm.
So, but again, back to Washington, or excuse me, New York and New England.
Yeah.
I like Odell Beckham a lot. He's great.
Yeah.
He can go off every week. Last week I had him in lineups last week, 9 for 105. But the week before, 8 for 130 and 3 TDs. It's entirely possible he does that again.
So you're taking the over. Pretty much
I'll take the push.
hard to
54
say
and a half is a lot of points.
hard to say anybody in this game that you don't like, that I don't like. You, the collective you.
Yeah.
It looks like an exciting game.
Again, and it's crazy that it's not the Sunday night game, that they didn't flex it. But I guess it's a division game. But the Seahawks aren't good.
It's not a division game. Oh,
No,
that's
the Sunday night
gotcha.
game, yeah.
Maybe it's because they wanted to put both Mannings on TV at the same time. Because right next after that we have Chiefs at Broncos, also a 1 p.m. Pacific time game. This one has a much smaller over/under of 41.5. Chiefs are coming off a bye. Um,
Good point. And the
who'd the Broncos play last? Are the Broncos coming off a bye too?
the Broncos played
No, they
against
played.
the Colts,
The Colts, yeah.
and then
I
they
was like,
lost.
yeah, they lost against the Colts after
Hmm.
and Emmanuel Sanders got banged up, hurt his shoulder, questionable this week. I've got a sneaky play here, which is I like the Chiefs defense.
You do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Manning threw a pick six last week that we all saw. That was it a pick six or just a pick at the end of the game?
I didn't watch it.
Oh, there's the best Manning face ever at the end of the game.
I
Oh no,
had
the
red zone
game
on and I
ended
fell
on a
asleep.
penalty.
I had
Yeah.
red zone on and I fell asleep.
Yeah.
I had driven back from Arizona that day. But yeah. I do remember that
Um,
highlight.
It was, yeah, they were supposed to get the ball back, and then there was a penalty that caused a runoff and let them win the game. So I don't know, though. I like the Chiefs coming off a bye, being able to game plan more against Peyton Manning after one of those Peyton Manning weeks, which I don't think he bounces back very well. He's going to set the record. His first reception will probably set the record for most all-time passing yards. But that's not like something this last week. It was something to strive for. Now it's like, well, it's going to happen no matter what. Big deal. I really like the Chiefs defense for a fun bounce back against the Broncos.
I'll say my pick, and this is if you want to go real contrarian in a tournament. But if you were to have your top 2 receivers in a tournament be Antonio Brown and Demaryius Thomas, I think that has the chance to put up a lot of points at a low ownership or lower than normal.
Hmm.
Against the Chiefs on the 17th of September, I don't remember what week that was. Week 2? They played Baltimore in week 1, right?
Yeah.
So week 2 against the Chiefs, Demarius Thomas had 8 receptions for 116 yards. His price has gone down considerably, even though he's still clearly a 1. He just hasn't been getting in the end zone. The past 5 weeks, he hasn't been in the end zone. But
Hmm.
against Green Bay, he had 8 receptions for 168 yards. I like Demarius Thomas this week. And again, you could go Demarius Thomas, Antonio Brown, 2 very high ceiling, low and high floor players, really, that whose quarterbacks really just aren't getting it done, but at the same time, they're getting it done enough to where these receivers can still put up decent points this week. So I like Demarius Thomas. And Emmanuel Sanders, he's a little banged up. He's questionable, I see here. Ankle, shoulder. Here's what it says. What Sanders is able to do, if anything, at practice on Friday will be telling with regard to his status for Sunday's game against the Chiefs, but an official questionable injury designation for the wideout appears at this time to be a plausible outcome.
The real
Which
question
doesn't tell us anything. So
The real question in this game
thank you,
is
RotoWire.
Vernon Davis, because Owen Daniels, since Vernon Davis was acquired, or actually just the last 2 weeks, Owen Daniels has had really good weeks, gotten some good targets. And is Vernon Davis bigger, stronger, faster than Owen Daniels? And will he be something they can utilize in the offense this week, especially if Emmanuel Sanders is banged up? You know, if they want to run him out there but want to protect him, want to run him out there not as much. Will we even see 2 tight end sets with Owen Daniels and Vernon Davis both, trying to just provide both protection and safety outlets for Peyton Manning? You know, when this trade happened, everybody was talking about it because it sounds like it could be the perfect fit for that team, the last piece of the puzzle that they really need in order to make this hobbled Peyton Manning year work. So this week's been suspiciously quiet on that front. 2,500 on DraftKings, 5,100 on FanDuel.
He's cheap.
Yeah.
I like him though, and I loved the acquisition when it happened. I ran
But
out.
do we know if he's playing?
I mean, I don't
I mean,
know.
how
he
do we
is
know?
playing.
Yeah. It's like,
He did play against the Colts, but he did.
yeah,
Like
but you know what I
said,
mean? Like, is
Owen
he
Daniels.
integrated? Is what we don't know and we won't know.
And what was it last week we were talking about? We said wait for him for this week.
Yeah.
So this would be the week to play him. He's a tournament play. I wouldn't touch him in a cash game, but I like him in tournaments.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Game of the week.
Are you starting anybody on the Chiefs?
I don't know. West is cheap.
Their defense.
They have the opposite of recency bias, which is we didn't see him last week. We still have yet to see who their real stars are. With the injury, we have. Who are they going to? Are they going to just keep passing to Kelsey? Or is West going to have another? I just don't know them well enough. I haven't gotten to see much of them playing, and the stat line is just all Kelsey with some West, but he's only really been there as the feature for 2 weeks. Is there something crazy they did in the bye week, and now Niall Davis is going to come back and be? It's like I just don't know.
You're starting their defense.
Read a Kansas City newspaper.
You like the Kansas City defense.
I do like their defense. So yeah, Cardinals at Seahawks. Cardinals coming off a bye. Seahawks coming off a bye. Am I making stuff up again?
I mean, let's double check that really quick just so that we're sure. But
Sherman.
Richard Sherman
There you
will
go.
be playing in this game. They had their bye week last week, week 9. Yes.
So we got 2 fresh teams.
Yes.
Which is good because the Cardinals were just starting to get banged up. John Brown 2 weeks ago was active and I think went in on 0 snaps, if I'm not mistaken. He was on the sideline the whole time, and they were using that guy that nobody had heard of. Came in, Jay Nelson. That was not, I think JJ Nelson might be his name, and had a monster week. So John Brown is still listed as questionable. That said, I think that looking at it, not just the bye week, but he pretty much had a week off the week before. I think that that's a safe play. And you know how this Cardinals team likes to go. They just like to spread it. They like to spread it long and wide. Don't we all? Uh, so this will be interesting to see how the Seahawks defense handles it. You know, is Carson Palmer this will be the week. This will be an interesting game, even though I wish it was the afternoon game and the Patriots Giants was at night. But I want to watch both these games.
And I was kind of crapping on this game, saying that the New England Giants game should be the night game, but this is pretty good. Cardinals are 6-2, Seahawks are 4-4. Seahawks win this game, they're right back in it for the division. They have that home field advantage. They've got they have an extra player. They call him the 12th man, and he sits in the stands and he can help the team on the field somehow.
Sorry, I decided to search for something too late, but it's I feel like I remember Pete Carroll killing it after the bye week generally.
And, that's a good something to look up. I know the Cardinals always play the Seahawks really well. And last year they beat them in Seattle. I'm not going to look it up. I'm just going to say it happened. So if you're listening and you made it this far, you can correct me on Twitter.
Yeah.
But
well, plus we'll have our fun little segment. So this will be its own. Yeah. This will be the most boring of the game segments because it's me and you just Googling stuff. Yeah. But this will have its own segment, so let's keep that in mind. People, check it out. Follow us on YouTube.
No player really stands out to me. It's not a Carson Palmer week, is it?
I mean, it might be. You get John Brown going long, Fitz underneath. Mm-hmm. You know, you spread it. You got Chris Johnson. You got Duke David Johnson. Mm-hmm. You got Andre Ellington. You know, it's like you got all this stuff going on. Plus, you got this Nelson kid now looking good coming in. And you got the guy that we've both had a minor love affair with this season, Michael Floyd. Mm-hmm. You know, if he's getting the time under center to pick and choose from all of these, this could be a Carson Palmer week.
Yeah, I like him in tournaments. I'd stay away in cash.
This could also be a Marshawn Lynch week.
It could be a Marshawn Lynch week, although I like the Arizona defense, and I have them starting in a few leagues.
So
games. They're just Arizona defense is giving up 74.9 passer rating to opposing quarterbacks. It's the best, third best in the league. Against the run, both teams are solid. Arizona 3.8 yards per carry. Seattle 3.8. They're pretty similar against the run. Against the pass, Seattle's been good. 44.5 is the over-under for this game.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I think a lot of bets are going to come on the under.
The Cardinals just have a weird habit of putting up points, though.
They do. That'd be the team that scores the most points this game for you? I think so. That would be for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. But there's nobody that really stands out just looking at the matchup,
at I mean, we do, because for fantasy, we look at different things than we do as fans. I'm excited to watch this game. You're right, though. I'd probably stay away from it from the most part from a fantasy perspective based on price and based on, who's going to score.
You've convinced me, though. I think Carson Palmer would be a nice tournament play at quarterback, especially since he's expensive. FanDuel, he is 8,000. DraftKings, he is 6,900. I just think there's other plays on, more expensive and cheaper. But yeah, Carson Palmer as a tournament play.
Now we get to this is my salivating game right here. I'm salivating over here, James.
Let's hear it.
Monday Night Football. Hank Williams Jr., Carrie Underwood. I don't know who does Monday Night Football song now. Celine Dion. Shania Twain.
Carrie Underwood does the Sunday night game. But
Houston Texans at Cincinnati Bengals.
All your rowdy friends are here on Monday night?
All my rowdy friends are here. We've got Brian Hoyer, one of my rowdy friends. He's not going to show up until the second half, but in that second half, he'll get you 25 fantasy points after getting you -3, so you're really only going to come out with 22. But 6,800 on FanDuel, I'm starting him. Nate Washington, the targets king of Houston, of sausage. DeAndre Hopkins. God, I want to be like you and go with Odell Beckham and Antonio Bryant, but I just got this little love thing for DeAndre Hopkins this week. Coming off a bye for the Texans. I love him.
I will say Cincinnati has been pretty good against the pass. They've given up an 84.8 passer rating, which is good for ninth best. My plays are going to come from the Bengals against that Houston defense that just is...
Oh, that's awful.
That's rough. Houston...
It's atrocious.
Yeah. They're giving up 4.4 yards on the ground per carry, 123.5 yards per game.
That wasn't as defensive as I thought it would be. I was trying to do something defensive over here. I'm with you.
What are you, wagging a stick?
Yeah, I'm wagging a stick. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
Get off my lawn.
Neat.
The Texans' defense is horrendous. But they're coming off a bye.
They are coming off of a bye. Cincinnati is favored by 12 points. Over-under is at 47. I'm probably taking the under in that.
Really? Because, well, here's the thing. Again, with the second half, the Texans are going to score 21 points.
You think so?
Yeah. Like, they are. They do have the weapons to do that. Hopefully they won't get too enamored with Alfred Blue like they do sometimes when he's in there and, like, they dink and dunk and waste the first half trying to go to him. But, the Bengals have almost a bye working last Thursday night. So they got extra time, extra rest. They also saw how opening up their offense can pay off huge dividends. What did they score? 38 points in that game? I don't think they take their foot off the pedal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, yeah, 47.
So I like everybody.
You like everybody? Yep. I've got some Andy Dalton lineups. I've got some AJ Green, Shares, Eifert.
Where do you go there with Bernard and Hill?
That's a tough one. Probably Gio, but
I saw everybody on Twitter during Thursday night last Thursday was complaining. Oh, I need 20 more points from Jeremy Hill. I hope he gets it in the fourth quarter. Oh, I need 15 more points from Bernard, and they didn't let off the gas. But do they this week?
They do. Who's their next game? A lot of times people will look ahead and they'll say, "Oh, this might be a trap game because they have to play the Cardinals in Arizona next week, which looks like it's a Sunday night game." Yeah, it is. So the Bengals will be on next Sunday night in Arizona. Do you think they're looking ahead to that game and they are kind of falter a bit, maybe out of the gate against the Texans?
Maybe. Over under 47. What do you do?
Yeah, it's going to be like 21-25. 21-25 Bengals win. So Texans cover, and it's the under. 46 points.
There you go. Fool Duel getting at it now.
Yeah.
We're giving you the real goods.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, cool. Well, so that's our breakdown of the matchups this week. It only took us 7 hours and
we're at 123. So
123. All right.
Not terrible, but we're gonna sign off now. You can stay tuned. We're gonna clip out all these matchups, all these individual games for YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll be able to look at those. We'll have our lineup mini pod that we're going to record right after this.
And if you guys think that we're total idiots, go on Twitter at FoolDuel and challenge us to a game. We'll play it. We'll play it with our lineups and our guys. I won't switch and throw in Gio Bernard against you and surprise everybody. Mm-hmm. I'll play the guys that I like today.
Yeah, so will I. And that'd be a lot of fun for us. And it'd be fun for you taking our money.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening.
I took 80 cents of James's last week. You
sure did. Cha-ching.
So, yeah. This is Ivan for FanDuel, Fool Fan.
Full fan. And I'm James Gale. You can follow me at GoJPG. And thanks for listening.